Good evening, very warm welcome to the West Yorkshire Football Show and our usual Monday night roundup here across YouTube, Facebook, and on X, formerly known as Twitter. Of course, I am Chris Bell, and I'm joined, as always, by two of our regular cohorts, Stephen Down, Huddersfield Town fan, and Gareth Walker, the Bradford City, the banter amongst us all. Good evening, gents. First things first, how are we? Are we well?
Good evening.
Yeah, not too bad, thank you. Not so
all
bad.
Good. Yes, as you might notice, we are lacking a Leeds contingent, it's fair to say. Understandably, things are still a little bit raw, I think, for Jay and Brownie. They did a live at 10:30 this morning, basically to avoid having to come on here with a Huddersfield fan and a Bradford City fan. And to be honest, I don't really blame them when you think of it that way.
Bottled job.
That I did.
But in all seriousness, it was an excellent stream, and that is on our channels as well, on the YouTube channel. It will be on Spotify as well in due course to go and view. We are going to start, though, by talking a little bit about yesterday and Leeds United and the Championship playoff final. That just one of those. Look, we've all been there. We've all seen our sides in playoff finals before of varying successes. And when it doesn't go your way, it bloody hurts, doesn't it?
Yeah, so honestly, to be fair, I've been quite courteous with Jay and Steve over the last day or so. What would you say? 20 hours?
24 hours or so, yeah.
Yeah, listen, I'm not going to kick a dog while it's down, and that's funny, me being a Terriers fan, but it's the fact that, they've lost at Wembley. It's heartaking. I've been there. I was there under Forest. Not to go over it, but we got cheated out of it at the Forest final. But I've been there. I've left Wembley when you're devastated. It's a long journey back. They've paid a lot of money for them tickets. And, for some of the players who I didn't believe turned up and do the business on the biggest day in the Championship season, it's devastating. And, Steve, as we all know in the chat, it was his first time at Wembley. Massive sort of day for him. I know Jay's been before, but, to go there and step off that Wembley tube station and see the Golden Arch, what formerly was the Towers, is a beautiful sight of English football. And when you leave there gutted, there's no worse feeling. And we've all been there, Gaz, me, and you, Chris, I believe, and it's difficult, but I know we might get into the game a little bit. I felt sorry for the lads. Obviously, as a Town fan, I couldn't help but want Southampton to win. But I was genuinely gutted for the lads, and particularly Steve, because I know how he was feeling going into the playoffs. And, it's turned out the way that he probably thought it was going to go. But I did say that Leeds were not going to go up if they got in the playoffs. They're not a playoff team. They're just not. And that turned out to be the case.
Things can change, though. Things can change, and it could have been one of those days. I mean, Gaz, I know you kind of kept tabs on it as best you could as well. And look, from a Bradford City, this feels so bizarre, but from a Bradford City fan, but obviously a friend of Jay and Steve and the show, we know we've got such a strong Leeds following on the podcast as well. It's just one of those things that the lottery of the playoffs rings true. And for me, this was probably one of the more even playoff finals before kickoff in terms of trying to call a favourite than I can remember for a long, long time.
Yeah, my missus said to me today, she says, when you're on that pod, she says, I hear Huddersfield and Leeds fans, she said, having a go at each other. She says, why do you stay out of it? I says, because I've not really to crow about being in League Two and supporting Bradford, and I'm kind of like, what's the point? But yeah, from a Bradford fan's perspective, and on the Bradford hashtag yesterday, there was a lot of people taking delight in Leeds not getting promoted, as you can expect. But like you say, as a friend of Steve and Jay's, you can't help but feel for them. I said in the group chat yesterday, I feel very fortunate to an extent that as a lower league football fan, I've managed to see City at Wembley 4 times. Once at the old Wembley and 3 times at the new Wembley.
Of course, I forgot you're that old to remember the old stadium.
Getting old, mate. Drawing my pension soon. I went in '96 and we went up in the playoffs. I went in 2013 twice. Obviously, the League Cup final, we got hammered by Swansea, and then the playoff final when we hammered Northampton. And then I went in 2017 when I know Downsy's just said they got they got robbed by Forest. We feel we got robbed by Millwall.
Yeah.
When they beat us 1-0, we were probably the better side, and then the goal was offside, and with VAR it wouldn't have been allowed, but we lost 1-0, and look what's happened since then, because Millwall now an established Championship side and us languishing in League Two. So I totally feel the pain. It makes or breaks the season. The playoffs are brilliant to watch, but they're also heartbreaking too. And like you said, when Steve's gone for the first time, it's just not a nice experience losing. There's nothing better than winning at Wembley, but there's nothing worse than losing there as well. So yeah, feel for them. Like you say, as for the game itself, it did seem quite even. I thought that Leeds probably started the better side, and I did feel in the second half that if they'd got one goal, they'd have probably gone on and won 2 or 3-1.
Yeah.
But credit to Southampton, they dug in, they protected what they had, and at the end of the day, they've won 1-0 and they've got promoted. So there's not a lot more to say other than that, to be honest, Chris. You just, like I say, you feel for your mates, but as a rivalry type of thing, it is quite funny.
That's not the heartfelt point to end on that I was hoping to get out of this little bit of a conversation. I mean, look, it's one of those you see with what's happening with the managerial links, of course, with obviously Maresca at Leicester and McKenna on, with all the jobs, and it would have been one of those unusual things had all three that came down have gone back up. Sorry, of course, Ipswich kind of ruining that plethora. But how many times have we said this season about that title race? You've got the three sides that you're going to expect to be up there, and then Ipswich well and truly crashing that party. And look, you look at the back end of the season for Leeds, and it just didn't happen after that. The now famous international break that almost seems to have derailed and kind of cost Leeds the automatic spot at the very least, and obviously not the form going into the playoffs as well.
Yeah, well, you look at the Blackburn game, you look at the QPR defeat, you look at the Sunderland game where I believe they should have had probably 1 or 2 penalties. So, them games have counted big against them. And Ipswich have been the bothersome fly in the ointment, really, for all them sides. I think, even Leicester, to be fair, after the Christmas, where they went on a bit of a bad run. But for me, I think Gaz touched on the game there. I said, to be fair, before, if Leeds get an early goal, I didn't see how they couldn't win that game. I think Southampton getting that goal when they did and the clinical finish of Armstrong shook Leeds. I think it shook the team to its core, really. And they had that bit of confidence at the start, and they came out the traps far better. But Southampton settled into the game, controlled it from about 15 minutes on, got the goal. I thought half time, Chris, to be fair, I thought Leeds would have come out again, which they did for the next 10 minutes. But it was like, right, well, we've got to 10 minutes and we've done all this work, but now we'll regress again. And Southampton took back over, and obviously then for the last sort of like 10 minutes, Leeds just threw everything at it, and they didn't have a plan B, as we've spoke about in our group. And Southampton played the perfect game, really, and Russell Martin did the job. I think, it's just the pressure in it for Leeds. I believe that there wasn't the pressure on Southampton in that game, and they coped with that less of a pressure, and some of the Leeds players didn't cope with it. Somerville, Nonto, Rutter, they didn't turn up for me. I think if all of them turn up, they win the game. Armstrong turned up and 1-0, and I agree with you. It was probably the levelist, if that's a word that you can use, playoff final. Normally, you have sort of an underdog and a
favourite for it.
A favourite, yeah. But this one, you couldn't really call it going into the game, except for the fact that you probably would say if Leeds scored in the first 10, 15 minutes, they would go on and maybe dominate the game. And I think they'll probably look back on this, I don't know what you guys think, as a missed opportunity to get promotion. I know next season is going to be a lot sort of less tense in the Championship because of the nature of the teams that are coming into it and down from it, from the Premier League. But I do think it's a missed opportunity. And if they don't do it next season, that's when the finances start to bite, because you have a massive drop in payments from the Premier League.
Yeah, there could be financial bites, shall we say, to be taken out of Leeds between now and the start of next season, if reports are to be believed. I know Jay, when he was talking this morning on the stream that he and Brownie did, was a lot more confident that there aren't as bigger issues as a lot of people are kind of making out around the financial aspect for Leeds. Just quickly touching back onto the game, though, Gaz, like that effort from Dan James, that's one of those that if it go, on another day, it's 2 or 3 inches lower, underside the crossbar, in, and then that game turns. It's like you were saying about if Leeds had got that one, the momentum would have been with them to perhaps get the second.
I did feel that, Chris. Yeah, watching it. I mean, sometimes, like you say, you just get the feeling it's not going to be your day, don't you? And it went hit the bar, and obviously, like, McCarthy's made a couple of decent saves. I know, like, McCarthy's been sort of ridiculed a little bit as not being a great keeper, but I thought he had a good game yesterday. He made 2 really good saves, and when James was hit the bar, that's probably your moment when you're thinking, yeah, well, it's not going to be our day. We talked about Adam Armstrong a little bit there. Obviously, you've got to remember that Leeds didn't have Bamford, and I know he's not a goal scorer like Armstrong, but he does seem to play, he's massive for the way they play. Jay and Steve have talked about this a lot, haven't they?
Yeah, Perot was useless. Perot was absolutely useless yesterday. I could have played up front for Leeds and been more effective.
It's one of those. I mean, again, look, we've said quite a lot this season that Pirro doesn't necessarily fit the system that Daniel Farke wants to play, but he's still come out as the 3rd top goal scorer of the club. I think on 12 or 13 goals this season. And you look at the way that he played in that second leg of the playoffs and thought, hey, he can do it. He can fill that role and play well, because he had a really good, about an hour or so of that second leg, he was really, really good. But I thought, Chris, one of those, when the final came along, it was like Leeds reverted back to type in terms of, those last few games of the season and the first leg of the semi-final. Leeds have played well in probably one of the last 6 or 7 games, truth be told.
I thought Jay and Steve made a very good example this morning of Perot's. Yes, he's the 3rd top goal scorer at the club, but if you look at his shots ratio, he's had less chances than Jack Radoni and Josh Garoma at Town.
Yeah.
Who have both got relegated. And
that's not necessarily Pirro's fault, is it? That's
no, it's not. But at the same time, you are a centre forward. You've been bought for 10 million, I think they said. That easy job to score goals, and he hasn't scored enough goals. So,
But I'd love to. It comes from the supply. They did make the point that it comes from the supply, doesn't it? Because, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. They haven't been leading Pirro towards the goal to give him the chances to score more goals. And this is the problem. Tactically, Farke, it seems, hasn't got it right over the course of the season with how to use Pirro. And we said, I think, not long after he signed, actually, that he was being used in a different role to how he was at Swansea. With Swansea, he was primarily always in a 2, with somebody to play off.
Yeah, well, that's bad management, Chris. That's not making the most of. You've got the best front 4-6 in the division, in my opinion. I know probably you might, or people have different opinions, but when you've got the best front 4 or 6 in the whole division, you should be able to find a way to find the best system to play everybody in.
But what Leeds didn't have is the best defence, and that also goes a long way. We talked earlier. We had a long discussion about Leicester and Leeds and the squads, etc. And as good as the front 4 is for Leeds, I don't think Leicester's is much worse, to be honest. And I think when I looked at this up earlier, you look at the players that Leicester signed, actually, they spent just short of €8 million on a goalkeeper, €8 million on a right back, centre mid, I think, in Winks that was 11.5 million, and paid him, if rumours to be believed, at 90 grand a week. So, but defensively as a unit, it wasn't that different to what they'd had. It was players made up from that squad from the Premier League season. Vestergaard played, James Justin, Wout Faes, the Belgian defender, etc. There's players in there that are easily bottom-end Premier League good, whereas with Leeds, I mean, the fact that as good as he's been this season, they've thrown in a young Archie Gray at right back for the majority of it, which, right thing, that wasn't his original position by any stretch.
I mean, I'd just like to. I said on the last pod that if Leeds played like they did in that second leg against Norwich, that they'd win the game.
And they didn't.
But they didn't, did they? They played out like you've just said, Chris, or said earlier on, that they played how they have done since the international break. Now, I can kind of see how, from my Liverpool perspective, see how Leeds fans are feeling about that, because international break came at the wrong time for Liverpool in the Premier League.
Yeah.
It came at the wrong time for Leeds. We'll talk about the defence that leads me on to talk about the defence actually that you've just mentioned. I remember Jay saying probably before the international break that the only goals they were conceding were from set pieces. After the international break, it's just like you said, the wheels have just come off defensively, and the shipping goals, or they were shipping goals from all sorts of different scenarios. Maybe the calibre of the player is something that plays an effect. Well, it plays an effect on that, but you're right. The Leicester defence, you would say on paper, is a better defence than the Leeds defence. Leeds' strength is going forward, and when you've added Pirot into that, it makes you wonder if he is such a bad fit, why was he signed in the first place?
Well, I mean, Brownie and Jay have said time and time again,
Exactly.
They missed out on Cameron Archer, haven't they? So it was let's go for whoever's available at the next.
Yeah.
And to be fair, Pirot is a very solid championship striker. I know he's taken a lot. Honestly, I think what?
But you've got to get the best
maybe
out of him. Like
18,
we were saying, and that's down to the manager.
Yeah, I think 18 out of the 24 championship clubs would probably look at Joel Pirot and be like, yeah, we'll take you, because his record at championship level is excellent. It's just not getting the best out of him, which, of course, as we say, comes back to the manager. And I want to use that to kind of lead us on to the whole Daniel Farke thing. Like, look, again, in the group chat, it's been a little bit of a in or out sort of situation. Obviously, the Leeds fans seem... I don't think it's what you class like an aggressive split, but there's certainly people in the complete opposite contrasting camps as to should he stay and build and carry on? Should he go and you start afresh? I mean,
it's raw though, isn't it, Chris?
It is. Yeah. But if you know, all right. But for us three as neutrals in this, all right, I'm going to try and be neutral. You two, like, how would you look at it if this was in your position with your club and everything? You know, the squad and the resources that Leeds squad have got, but in a Huddersfield Town shirt or a Bradford City shirt, and the same thing it comes. What would you do with a manager in this position?
Right, so I'll go first. My reaction is when we just as an example, Chris, when we lost the playoff final to Nottingham Forest, right? We knew that was it. That our squad couldn't go on for another season, and Corberan, as it was, and Corberan couldn't get the best out of them players again to go for another promotion, right? Farke's in a totally different position here because he's got a lot of these players who can go again for promotion. Now, a lot of it determines on who's going to go and who we might bring in. I understand that. I find it odd that so many Leeds fans, and you speak to so many, by the way, that love or did love Roden, you know, and thought the absolute world of him. And within 24 hours, they're going, nah, get rid of him, send him back. We don't want him back, and all this stuff. And I just think, hang on, that's a little bit fickle. You've been going on and on all season about how good of a centre-back he is. And now, you know...
There's always exceptions, isn't there? There's always people in the fan base that are that flippant at times, but I know what you mean.
And I think that's the same with Farke. You know, all season they've sort of backed him. I know there's been a few that have I know there's been a few over the course of the season that particularly going towards the end of it, who have come out and said, well, we don't think, you know, he's not for us kind of thing. But I think you've got to give him a chance. If he wants to stay at Leeds, you've got to give him a chance, haven't you? Especially, you know, next season when they've still got the money to be able to go there and go out and get some players and, you know, change the squad. And I personally, I will keep him in charge, but I understand the hesitancy because he hasn't got a plan B. And you have to be sound in the mind that he's not going to change over the summer. He's still not going to have a plan B come the start of next season. So,
I think Farke, good Championship manager, poor Premier League manager.
Yeah.
Now, it kind of leads on to what we were talking about in the group chat earlier today about Maresca going to Chelsea or McKenna possibly.
We were going to go on to this later on, but go on. We'll start this argument now because Danzy's on drugs or something from what he was on about earlier.
Well, the thing is, like, I think you keep him because I think the Championship's going to be weaker next year. I don't think it's as strong. It'll be as strong as it was this year. If they do keep the team together. I mean, I know I've seen on Twitter already at times today, there's other teams saying we should go for this player from Leeds, we should go for that player from Leeds. Leeds are going to have to sell him. Will they have to sell him? They might want to keep him. There's speculation already, and this is like 24 hours later. But if they can keep the team together, Farker is still the right man, or the best man for me, to get them promoted next season. The problem comes if, like I said, they have to sell players, or if they can bounce back, because he's never been in this situation before. When he was with Norwich, he went up straight away both times.
Twice, yeah.
So can he get that group of players to go again? That's the big question that he's got to answer, and the board have got to think about. But pedigree-wise, looking at the strength of the Championship next season, for me, you stick with him, you give him another go, at least until probably Christmas. And if you're nowhere near at Christmas, if you're a playoff team at Christmas, then you look at it then. But, at the moment, you keep him.
A lot is going to depend in terms of the recruitment this summer. And I know Lewis in our group chat earlier made the point about the recruitment. It's going to depend a lot on what they do in terms of the players that are out on loan. I mean, obviously, numerous players that have been signed in the last 2 seasons prior to this one just finished went out on loan. You know, Aronson's, Christensen's, Tyler Adams, and Sinistera both went to Bournemouth. Vober as well, Max Vober, the centre half, he went out to Borussia Mönchengladbach. The question is, how well have these players been doing on these loan spells? Well, no. Well, it's probably very.
I mean, Aronson apparently has had a terrible season.
I know, like Vober's been doing all right at Gladbach from kind of what I've seen, but basically what it comes down to it, and the same applies for Adams and Sinistera, because that's a huge amount of this money or whatever needs paying by June could be, brought in by them two. But if Bournemouth say no, then you've then stuck with the players and you're relying on other clubs being interested, or you're stuck with them.
And the fee drops.
Getting that. Yeah, the fee then drops because you become more desperate to sell. And are they going to be in a position of having to sell a lot of those assets, the ones that aren't in the squad now, before they can, add to the squad? Obviously, as you say, there's been a hell of a lot of talk about Somerville, a lot of talk about Nonto. I mean, I'm fairly sure, guys. I've even seen Liverpool, of course, with Arne Slot coming in as a Dutchman, them being linked with Somerville. Correct me if I'm wrong.
They've been linked with Somerville. I know a lot of Liverpool fans wouldn't have him as their first choice. Interesting to talk to Jay and Steve about that and get their thoughts on why Liverpool fans might not want him. The one I've seen, Liverpool especially being linked with, but other teams as well, is Archie Gray. Now, Archie Gray, for me, is the one that's probably most likely to stay out of a lot of them.
Yeah,
I see him stay. I see him keeping hold of him. I see him staying there at least another year. Yeah. But he's the one, might be in demand the most.
Literally, one of my mates last night who I was talking to, who's a Newcastle United fan, was like, we were talking about the Leeds United possibility of having to offload players and that sort of thing. And he was the first person that he mentioned. He was like, as a Newcastle fan, the one I go for, without a shadow of a doubt, Archie Gray.
And that's what he's the one.
Well, he's the one. He's 18. You get hold of him and you can develop him really easily into your style of football, what you want him to do in your side. I think he'd be a perfect fit for Liverpool. The thing with Somerville.
Just going to quickly bring these in. Sorry, Steve. We'll come back to Somerville in a second. 1 or 2 comments regarding the Adams and Sinistera thing. Allegedly, already been sorted, apparently. So it was loans with options. I always thought it was the options to buys rather than obligations to buys. Mm-hmm. But if it's obligations to buy and the 45 is there, then that's the start of it, I guess. So that's a positive side. Yeah. But I thought it was options rather than obligations at this stage. But hey ho, that's the benefit in this case because it's less to have to worry about selling then from the rest of the squad.
Yeah, the thing with Somerville, the thing with Somerville, and Chris obviously is a super neutral. I'd like to get your opinion on it. But do you think somebody like Liverpool is going to go out and spend 40 million on him? I know he's a good player and he's won the Championship Player of the Season. Don't get me wrong, he's a fantastic player, but 40 million is worth a lot of money, and clubs like Liverpool will probably want to pay less money from somebody from Europe.
I hate to say it, Steve, but 40 million isn't a right lot nowadays to a Premier League club, especially to a club the size of Liverpool. And also, you've got to factor in, if this manager wants this player, they're going to go and get him. And obviously, coming in as a fellow countryman to Credenzo Somerville, I could very, very easily see it happen. And actually, you know what? I think he'd do all right. I have there isn't a doubt in my mind that he can make it as a top end Premier League player in the future. You know, he's only 22 years old now. He's got another decade at top level football potentially. So with the right coaching and development, I have no reason to say that 40 million might not be a bit of a bargain, to be honest.
The issue is what else can you get for your money? Now there's rumours that Elise's got a £60 million release clause in his contract at Palace. There's rumours that Kudus has got a release clause in his contract at West Ham.
Is that 85 I did, the Kudus one?
I don't know about the Kudus one.
Yeah, but but my point is, like, you look at somebody like Diaz, right? Liverpool. I don't think if you'd have asked a lot of Liverpool fans at the time of signing Diaz, they wouldn't have known a lot about him. They'd have known a bit about him, don't get me wrong.
Yeah, they've seen him in the Champions League for Porto a fair bit, to be fair.
Yeah, but they wouldn't have known amazing things about him, would they? And they paid nowhere near 40 million for Diaz, did they? So all I'm saying is, I'm not dissing Somerville. I'm not saying he's not a good player. I'm saying he's a very, very good player. And like you say, Chris, he's 22 and he can develop. But the clubs do look around for better deals before they go, right, well, we'll go Somerville.
Sorry. I just thought I'm just going to check what Liverpool paid for Luis Diaz. Did you say it was nowhere near 40 million? It was 37.5. So you're 2.5 million out.
Oh, it's still 2.5 million.
That really is fair change to Liverpool. But I think in this case it is going to be the Dutch the Dutch effect in it. I think Arne Slot, you know, the fact that Somerville as well isn't just the fact that he's Dutch. He's Rotterdam born and bred as well.
The thing
I would pay 40 million for him.
Without wanting this to become a big section about Liverpool, obviously there's going to be other clubs looking at him as well.
Well, I've just seen Stevie in the chat, Mark Robinson as well. Also mentioned 2 secs when I can get this to work. That Chelsea, unsurprisingly, because it's Chelsea and they sniff around everyone for Christ's sakes. That Chelsea is sniffing.
Liverpool as well. I don't think the Dutch thing would be that big a thing. Liverpool are going down a new structure now, where Michael Edwards has come back, Richard Hughes has come back. Transfers are very much being taken out of the coach's hands. I don't think Slot's going to have the power that Klopp had to go, I want him, let's get him. I think Slot is brought in.
Nowhere.
They're very, very focused. What happened previously at Liverpool was that it was led by David Fallows, Ian Graham, Richard Hughes and Michael Edwards, and then that all sort of disbanded as Klopp became more powerful and they all sort of left. And the basically indications are at the moment that Edwards is back, although not working directly for Liverpool, working for FSG, and he's getting the band back together and setting up that structure again. So I don't know if the Dutch thing would be that big a thing. I think that Edwards and his data models will be finding players for Arne Slot.
He may well fit into it.
But like I say, I don't want this to become a big Liverpool pod. So
well, time will tell, I suppose, on that front. It's one of those. Obviously, when, as Steve said before, whenever this situation happens, and you've got a losing side in the playoff final, and players have had good seasons, there's bound to be clubs that are going to come sniffing. And that's going to be the case, you think, for Somerville, for perhaps Nonto. You know, there's a number of players in that Leeds side that have had good seasons. So time will tell.
Well, Nonto nearly went last summer, didn't he?
Yeah, but he only wanted to go because he thought he could get in the Italy squad, and then Mancini went, not a chance.
He had previously been in the squad under Mancini. You can see why he thought that. Let's move on from Leeds. As I say, just before we do, though, Brownie and Jay, they did a stream at 10:30 this morning for about an hour or so. It is up on all of our channels on YouTube. You can get to it through Facebook and Twitter as well. So do go and give that a watch if you are of a Leeds United persuasion. Let's turn our attention then to Huddersfield Town. And that's that done. So Bradford City.
No, genuinely, there's nothing to say.
We were saying before we came on, we're like, as regards Huddersfield,
there's been a few changes to the board in people moving into financial positions, but I'll be honest, no Town fans are going to care really. So move on.
The one player rumour that we have heard actually is Jay Rodriguez, of course, at Burnley. Obviously knows Michael Duff as well from their time together at the club, with both as players. Interesting one, and actually, you look at that and think if they could pull it off with the right money in League One, that would be a heck of a signing.
Yeah, 35. I know. Me and my dad had a chat about this at tea, and he's not. My dad.
Is he less enamoured?
Yeah, he prefers to sign younger potential players rather than 35-year-olds that are off for the last payday. But I think he would add experience to the squad. I think he's a proven true professional. You look at what people have said about him at Burnley. Burnley fans are gutted to lose him, and Burnley staff will be as well. He obviously being released. So 35, yeah, a bit old. Knows League One. Scores goals for fun, or has done in his career. Maybe a bit injury prone, but Town never signed anybody that's fit anyway, so fits our bill, really, if we're being completely honest. He's another test for our medical department, so there we go. Not a bad signing.
On to Bradford. If it comes off. On to Bradford then. And again, even at Bradford, it's a little bit quiet in the last week or so, of course. By this time last week, we had a couple of signings, hadn't we? Anthony Sasovic and Neil Byrne have both arrived at Valley Parade. This time around, it's less about kind of what the manager and the players and the recruitment side of things, and more an interviewing with TNA guys. David Sharp has been, I say interview. It's almost got more editions than the World Encyclopedia. I think this interview on it with David Sharp.
Yeah, I said to you before we went live, Chris. I don't think there wasn't anything to talk about regarding Bradford until that interview was done in the TNA. Even then, the only real talking point, or the one that's got people a bit concerned, is the implication that we need to let players leave. We need to get more players out before we can sign anybody. That's a little bit worrying. I saw someone, whether I haven't checked this, but I saw someone tweeting that we've actually let 16 players leave, including youth and loans going back, and we've signed 2. Now, I haven't checked that, so don't quote me on that. But that was something that was suggested. Also, I can kind of understand that we might want that. There were 4 names listed in the paper, not quoted by David Sharp, but mentioned by Simon Parker. The 4 names mentioned were Timmy Odesina, Vidane Oliver, Kevin McDonald, and Adam Wilson. Now, I can kind of understand as not wanting to bring replacements in for them until they've gone, because why would you do it, especially when you're on a tight budget in League 2? But other than that, we still, for me, my opinion is we still need a couple of signings, whether they leave or not. Matty Platt left last week. Signed for Notts County. We need to replace him because I know Matty Platt split opinion at City. Not the greatest on the ball, but I don't think it tells lies that our defensive record was always better when he played. He was a regular in the side in that 7 or 8 game run that we had at the end of last season. And we were tighter with him in, and we need to replace him. So we need a centre half, regardless of whether any of those 4 players leave or not. We also need a left wing back, regardless of whether those 4 players leave or not, because at the moment, the only left wing back that we've got is Lewis Richards. So I would say that you need a centre half and a left wing back, regardless. Looking at the centre halves, we have 4 in the squad at the moment. One of those is Timmy Odesina, who we expect to leave, but we've been playing 3-5-2.
Yeah.
You need more than 4 centre halves when you're playing 3-5-2.
Odesina, where was he last season out on loan?
He went to Woking on loan.
That was it.
I believe he had a reasonably good time at Woking. Woking fans on Twitter I've seen would be quite keen to keep him. Seems like his journey is run at City. It's a little bit unfortunate because when we signed him, he came with a very good reputation from Hartlepool.
He'd had a really good season at Hartlepool that season before. I remember it well.
He got Young Player of the Year. I believe they were sad to let him go. I went up to the Hartlepool game, City away at Hartlepool that season, and he was outstanding. I think he got man of the match. There were meant to be quite a few teams after him when we got him. Suited to playing in the back 3. Only really got a chance under City, under Hughes, who played in 4-4-2. It didn't suit him. He had one game in particular. Well, he played a couple of games in the Papa John's Trophy and looked really good. And then he played in the league against Stockport, and Paddy Madden made a fool of him. And he was hauled off at half time, and he hasn't really been seen in the City's shirt since. And it's a little bit unfortunate because I'm sad it's not worked out given the reputation that he came with. we will need to replace him if and when he leaves, but we need one with Matt Platt going. We need one regardless of whether Timmy goes or not. And like I say, a left wing back as well. So a couple of signings. It was a little bit worrying to hear David Sharp saying that we won't be getting signings in until, or we might not be getting signings in until those 4 players have gone. We need a couple regardless, and then obviously to replace those 4 when they do go, for me.
Was there anything else that David Sharp touched upon across the interviews with Simon Parker of interest, or was it all a little bit of a PR mission, shall we say?
Yeah, a little bit. I can't really remember what was in the first instalment. Not a lot from what I can remember, but the third one was very much more talking about how good Ryan Sparks is and how him and Ryan get on well, and basically defending that sort of angle. Nothing extraordinary, nothing out of line or anything. But yeah, not a lot. Like I said, the main talking point was in that second instalment about the players and moving players on. For me at City, I've been thinking about it a lot over the last couple of days. For me, we need, if those 4 players we talked about are to leave, we probably need 6 signings. And then we also need, there's also talk, or we definitely need to be tying down or sorting out the contracts of Jamie Walker, Brad Halliday and Bobby Poynton, which I believe are on the agenda. Whether they'll happen or not, I don't know. But there have been stories that we are looking into negotiating longer deals with those three. So 4 players out, 6 in for me, and 3 new contracts, and I'd be happy.
There we go. That's all you want for your summer wish list, eh?
That's my summer wish list, Chris. Yeah.
That and a Euros win for England. It's not too much to ask. I was going to kind of touch on before we wrap up, but I'm aware that we're at 10 to 8 now. We said before we started we wanted to do kind of half hour or so at tops. We were going to talk about a little bit about the madness of the manager merry-go-round at the moment. I mean, let's just touch on for a start on Kieran McKenna. Obviously, a hell of a lot of speculation on him. Obviously, taking Ipswich up, back-to-back promotions, 2 promotions on his CV, done a great job. All the talk was Chelsea and Manchester United and Brighton. And now it looks like the news that's come out this afternoon, early evening, is he's going to sign a new lucrative deal to stay at Ipswich.
Yeah, there was chat about Sheeran, who's the majority shareholder, obviously superstar in himself, flying in quite quickly to I don't know where the nearest airport is to Ipswich, but anyway, flying into England.
Do you reckon he was going to serenade him? Is that the plan, do you reckon?
Who knows? If I could, I could make a witty Ed Sheeran song quip out of this, but do you know what? I can't think of any. So, yeah. So he flew back. They've had chats, and obviously he's going to probably sign this 5-year deal. Now this goes one of 2 ways for me, right? Man United sack Ten Hag, which a bit unbelievable after them winning the FA Cup. But if they do, maybe McKenna said, "Look, I'll sign a 5-year deal and they'll have to pay you a massive whack up front in compensation."
And that it would be to do it in the space of days.
which yeah, but that's one side of it. You know, if he said, right, well, yeah, I actually can't turn something like Chelsea or Man United down, but I'll sign a 5-year deal to give Ipswich a massive whack of money in sort of compensation fee, or you know, because that's happened before. Town have done that. That happened before. So, or he's signing a 5-year deal and he's going to stay there. And I hope he stays there. Listen, he's had a massive rise with Ipswich. I'd love him to go into the Premier League and keep them up and do something special with Ipswich. It'll be blooming hard for him to do it with Ipswich, but you know, because I don't think they've got a lot of resources. But I'd love it him to do it.
I was about to say there was quite a lot of talk about them investing quite heavily in the squad as a, you know, an incentive and a way to try and keep McKenna there to say, look, we are going to, you know, back you on during the summer. So we'll see on that front. Gaz, I'm going to talk to you about Enzo Maresca and not Steve because Steve's ridiculous. Enzo, it's a little bit, all right, that is a little bit harsh, but I mean, the stuff that you were spouting earlier about why Maresca
I'll keep it short and sweet.
Parker. I mean, good Lord.
Right, I'll keep it short and sweet, but
your name's not Gaz. Come on.
I know.
You two were proper butting heads, weren't you, in the chat today? I think Steve was grinding your gears, Chris, because you weren't having that, were you?
Rubbish. Nearly pulled the stream, everybody, by because of what I said.
You're doing my head in.
You wouldn't do it bad
Maresca's
at all.
at Chelsea. What a new level of insanity and idiocy this is, eh?
I think it's bizarre. I really do. We spoke about Poch, didn't we, in the group chat and as well. And
how do you go from Pochettino to Enzo Maresca?
Because it's Chelsea.
Well, the thing is, Poch had got him playing. It's taking him 2/3 of the season. But after that, they put up with it for 2/3 of the season of them being absolutely terrible. And then in the last third, he's got them going. They look a good side. Nobody wanted to play against them. He'd finally got a bit of cohesion and they sorted the personalities out.
He got them into Europe.
Now, the rumour is, isn't it? Well, yeah, got them in Europe after everything that's gone on. Obviously, the story is, or the rumours are around that it's Poch's decision to go because he wanted more control over transfers. So from that extent, it's different to Chelsea saying, see you later. But how, as you've just said, how do you go from Poch to Enzo Maresca? I mean, how's Maresca? The problems that the Chelsea squad or that have been with that Chelsea squad, how is Maresca going to walk into that dressing room and demand respect straight away from these young, egotistical, overpaid players as this reportedly are, and the problems that have been there? Maresca, like you said and like others have said, he's a Pep wannabe. He's got promotion, playing that way with Leicester, but he's still got a lot to prove. And to throw him in at the deep end in the Premier League like that is just a really, really big call, and I don't know how it's going to go.
Thing is, as well, like he wasn't even unanimously liked by Leicester fans, and he won the league with them. There were Leicester fans over the course of the season, even when they were, at the height of their peak last season, 17, 18 points clear or whatever at the top. There was still section of the fan base that just can't, that didn't like him, that couldn't warm to him as a person, as a character, as a manager. And you just look at this and think, well, what Poch has been really good at is putting arms around these young players in that Chelsea dressing room. And you look at some of the, all the stuff between Leeds and Leicester in the build-up to the game at Elland Road and that sort of thing that Maresca was spouting. He just doesn't strike me as a man manager, a particularly warming character, shall we say, that's going to be able to pick up where Poch has left off.
Well, Pep isn't a warm character either, is he?
No, he isn't.
That's the difference between, and I don't think Arteta's a warm character either. They're all robots of each other, aren't they? I don't think he's a good. I think he's an idiotic appointment too. That's not what me and Chris were arguing about in our chat, but I think it's a stupid decision. I actually don't think he'll make it to Christmas because I think it'll just all blow up in Chelsea's faces. I believe the rumours, Gaz. I think it was Poch's decision to leave because he's not getting a say on who Chelsea's signing. The only thing that makes sense to me of why they're wanting it is they want the Arteta Pep style, but B, seemingly, and I don't know whether this is correct, but he might have a good track record of working with younger players and getting.
Perhaps.
I don't know. Maybe he's got a good track record. But what I would say is, it's an idiotic appointment from Chelsea's point of view because he's not proven. I agree, Chris. Leicester fans wanted him out, so he's not a warming cat. He's not going to warm to Chelsea fans, is he? Let's be honest. The only thing that I would say is, listen, he's won a championship, hasn't he? He's won the championship. And he's won it by playing some excellent football at times. But I don't think it's just going to work. And just to touch on why me and Chris butted heads earlier in this chat, right? The argument was no Premier League team will come in for Farke at Leeds. And I said that I don't think, if you look at even the bottom clubs, they wouldn't come in for Farke because he's a failed Premier League manager. He's been relegated or been sacked out of the Premier League and taken teams down. Right, Maresca, yes, he hasn't managed in the Premier League, but this season he's done better than Farke. He's got more points than Farke. He's won more games. His team scored more goals.
Can't base
hang on, Chris, hang on. No, I'm not. Hang on. You can in isolation in this one season, right? He's done a better job than what Farke has done. I'm not saying that he's historically a better manager than Farke. What I'm saying is, in this season, he has achieved what he was brought in to do, and Daniel Farke hasn't.
And ultimately, it's still not
So
enough
hang on.
the
I'll
Chelsea
give you
job, though.
2 minutes. Just give me 2 more minutes. So
we have to.
We know, but we know, don't we? That, and the reason why teams in the Prem won't give Farke a chance is because what's happened before. Maresca's new, is shiny. It's like a new shiny ball that clubs want to get in. McKenna's the same. So clubs want to try these things. I think it's idiotic, but that's the reason. Farke's not shiny and new, and he hasn't got a plan B.
I'm not buying that myself. I just disagree with you on this one. I think if I agree that even if the roles were reversed, I don't necessarily think that if Farke would have won the league with Leeds, I don't think he'd have necessarily been linked with Chelsea.
No,
but I just don't think that on the whole you can basically on one. Ultimately, the thing for Maresca isn't necessarily what he's actually done at Leicester last season. It's the fact that he's a pet protege. That is it. And that's all everybody bloody wants nowadays at the top level is style of play this, style of play that. As Michael says here, if company going from Burnley to Bayern Munich, at least with that, company has had more experience as a manager. He's managed in Anderlecht and may not have been wildly successful, but he's managed there. He obviously took Burnley up, and he's stuck to his principles. But again, the reason he's getting the Bayern job at this rate is the style of play, not the results that he's actually obtained on the pitch. It's the same for Maresca.
I think we agree in some parts of the argument and disagree in others. No, I genuinely do. I think we both agree that he's a pet prodigy, and that's what top clubs are wanting. But I think where we disagree is the sort of the Farke angle, where Farke's not a shiny new manager, and he's got a bit of baggage with him, where Maresca hasn't. That's all I'm saying. That's why clubs want him.
Do you know what? I just like to make one point on this. Now, I think me and you spoke about this, Chris, previously. I am glad that McKenna's not going to Chelsea. The reason being, I just think it's just a terrible move for a young manager. I just think it's an awful move for a young manager because, as we've all basically said, I think he'll be gone by Christmas and he'll end up managing in Belgium or Holland or somewhere like that, trying to revitalise his career. So I'm glad that McKenna's not gone, but from that respect, I've got to be a bit sad that Maresca's gone as well, has gone, because they are similar stage of the managerial careers. I also think not to the same extent, because obviously Jim Ratcliffe's gone in at United and they're trying to turn it all around, but in a way, I will feel the same about a manager going to Man United at the moment.
On that, I just want to touch on the United thing actually. Just before we do go, I genuinely think it would be extremely harsh, even if they were to part ways with Ten Hag, who apparently still doesn't know. By the way, he said, didn't he, after the FA Cup final victory, that he's still not been kind of told. And I think there was one of the interviews that he gave to, which I can't remember which TV station or whatever it was. It was along the lines of, if Manchester United don't want me, I'll just go somewhere else to win trophies, which I think is an absolutely spot-on attitude to have.
I agree.
And also the fact that the thing that I saw the other day or after the final, that obviously Erik Ten Hag has now won more trophies for Manchester United than Arteta has for Arsenal. It's just fantastic as well. You know what? Personally, I really hope Ten Hag stays. I hope that because
because they'll never win the league with Ten Hag. That's why I hope he stays.
See, I'm not going to go down this route. I want to wrap up. So on that note,
He won't though.
We're going to leave it there, and we will come on to the managerial manager round, no doubt, over the coming weeks. When we've got much club stuff to talk about, so we'll talk about the wider stuff. Steve, Gaz, I am wrapping it up here because it's 8:00 and we said we're going to be off at 8.
Southgate, you're the one.
3 on the Euros, there, Gaz. We will be back later on over the course of the week, no doubt, with more content. We'll be doing a lot of stuff in the build-up to the Euros and during as well. I think the squad announcement, I can't remember, it's June the 6th, the finalised squad, so no doubt we'll be doing something around that as well. Looking ahead to the Euros. So, there'll be plenty more to come on the channel. And no doubt Jay and Brownie will find some angles for Leeds discussions and debates to come. Whatever happens with Farker, whatever happens with player sales and the financial aspect of the club as well. Time will tell, eh? Thank you very much, Steve and Gaz, for joining me tonight on this far shorter than usual Monday night roundup, but there hasn't been that much to talk about when we ain't got the Leeds fans on the show. So join us next time here on the West Yorkshire Football Show. Good night.